And I just need to read through the hearing script. This will basically just cover the procedure for the hearing, and then we'll get started. So this is the March 1st, 2023 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the Zoning Hearing Examiner for the City of Cincinnati, and I'll be presiding over the hearing today. The hearing before us is case number ZH20230013. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the Zoning Hearing Examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. If there's anyone here from the public, they will have an opportunity to speak after the applicant has presented its case. In the event that a party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument offered in opposition. I'll give our zoning plans examiner, Trey Sheldon, an opportunity to provide any testimony he would like in addition to his staff report. Let's see. Finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony. That's generally evidence you want to introduce that consists of statements made by someone who is not present at this hearing. In the event of any technical difficulties or issues with our Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect in the tech that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, let me go ahead and quickly get everyone checked in. I see that we have, I believe, the applicant here, Mr. Huber. Mr. Huber, if you could unmute and confirm that that is the case.
Confirmed. Andrew Huber, present.
All right. Welcome, Mr. Huber. Okay. See, we have Trey Sheldon, zoning plans examiner. Welcome, Trey.
Morning, David. Ready?
And we have Andrew Rich. Hi, Mr. Rich, are you there? Andrew Rich, can you hear me? Okay. Mr. Rich, if you're there, we're not able to hear you. If you could maybe start your video. Okay, Mr. Rich, can you hear us? Yeah, okay. We are unable to hear anything you're saying. Did you want to provide testimony here today? Sort of a thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay. Let me, give me 1 second. I am going to give Mr. Rich a phone number that he can call in. He can use his phone to provide audio testimony. Mr. Rich, in fact, if you have the invitation, the Zoom link invitation, there is a phone number in there. If you're comfortable using your cell phone, you dial that number. Well, let me make sure it's here. Yeah. Yeah, so Mr. Rich, as you scroll down that invitation, you'll see a 301-715-8592.
Enter your participant ID.
Okay. Here. Mr. Rich, can you try speaking again? Mr. Rich, can you try speaking again?
Please enter the meeting password followed by pound.
Mr. Rich, I can hear it.
You have not entered any numbers. Please re-enter the meeting password followed by pound. You have not entered any numbers. Please re-enter the meeting password followed by pound. There are 4 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing *6. You have been added to the waiting room. You cannot talk or listen until the host admits you to the meeting.
Mr. Rich, can you hear me? Mr. Rich? This is a new one on me. I don't know what's going on, but let me go ahead and try and bring him in over the phone. Mr. Rich, can you speak?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great. Sorry for the complexity. I'm not sure what the deal is with that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. That happens. Were you able to hear the instructions as I read through the procedure?
I was, yeah, I could hear everything. I just don't know why you guys couldn't hear me. Sorry for that.
Huh. Okay. Well, I think we're ready to get started. I think I need to swear in all of our witnesses. So anyone that intends on testifying here today, the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So if you plan on saying anything at all, any comments, any questions, if you could go ahead and make sure that you're unmuted right now and raise your right hand. I need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Rich?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Mr. Huber, are you ready to tell me about the project? Mr. Huber, can you hear me?
I hear you. Sorry, it was a little bit of interference.
No problem. Are you ready to proceed?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I'll be fairly brief. I read Mr. Sheldon's staff report, and I think he did a good job of summarizing our application. I put a summary of reasons for why we were requesting relief together. My main points were buffering, adverse effects, neighborhood compatibility, landscaping, and also the plans. Those were my main reasons that I feel like relief should be granted for my client. Buffering, sorry, I'm reading a screen next to my computer,
Sure.
so I'm not presenting as nicely as I'd like, but buffering, the subject property is, even in the SF20 district, abnormally large. The client has amassed actually 3 separate parcels, but he's got well over 1.5 acres there on Grandin 2581. Because of the frontage on the road and the size of the property, there will be extensive landscaping and grounds. And because of that, I do think it's in the entire neighborhood's best interest to allow for the service providers for the end homeowner in this case to be able to utilize that front yard parking, as it's called, with the wraparound driveway. I think that this home has been a very well-known home in the neighborhood. The property has. The home previously was utilizing the wraparound driveway. We are not proposing any actual change from that. In fact, we're going to use, we're requesting to use the existing curb cuts that are already there. And so essentially it's not really a big ask as far as I see it. And I would hope that most of the neighborhood and the administrators would agree. I mentioned buffering. I mentioned the adverse effects in traffic and the alleviation of on-street parking. I think that everybody in that neighborhood would agree on-street parking is an issue. Mr. Rich, I believe it's a sore spot, and everybody wants to get off that street as quickly as we can, as efficiently as we can. And we've been fortunate enough, because of the size of the lot during construction, we've been able to keep a lot of our parking off of the street, but it still spills over. And I think anytime anybody's got a lawn care trailer with lawnmowers in and out of there, it makes a bottleneck on the road. And I think that's the biggest benefit for this being allowed, is that when the owner, who's going to have people there, I imagine once, twice a week, taking care of the property, being able to pull them off of the road and utilize that front space is going to be extremely helpful. Neighborhood compatibility, that was documented as well with the photography, and I think Mr. Sheldon did a nice job of identifying a number of properties within a pretty good proximity that also utilize what I'm calling a wraparound driveway, but a front two curb cut front driveway. There's the one directly past ours on Grandin has the similar access, as well as multiple homes on that length of the street. As far as landscaping, it's not illustrated on any of my documents, but there is an existing hedgerow along the sidewalk on the street right now. My opinion, it should go because I think it doesn't give us good view of the home, but the owners are going to keep that. And the point in that is that it actually is going to create a visual hedge, and it's going to actually block off the view from most of Grandin into the front yard. So even when there are cars parked there, it's a 6 foot tall, thick hedge. That's going to remain. They're going to open up a piece in the center of it, adjacent, straight out from the front door. So when you're centered on the home, there'll be a human gate and access that you'll be able to walk through, but then the 2 curb cuts remaining the same, and that hedgerow is going to remain all along the frontage of the property, and that's going to create a lot of buffer if and when there are some vehicles parked in that front driveway. So that was my point about the landscaping, is they're going to put a very nice landscape package in there. It's going to be well maintained, and we feel like it's going to be a nice investment in the neighborhood. The other minor point, I'm not sure if it does a whole lot towards the argument of allowing this, but and I don't know if anybody on this Zoom has any culpability, but the city of Cincinnati, DOTE, in my opinion, has let this street go pretty far along. I believe the section of street, Mr. Rich, you may be able to confirm, but I believe we are in a dedicated section of Grandin. I know beyond ours, towards the end, it becomes a private drive, but the curb is non-existent on our frontage. There's 0 curb. So you guys, not you guys, but the city has pavement going to dirt. It's almost a curbless street in front of our property. The property directly above ours that utilizes a wraparound driveway, they have parking bumpers bordering the road. So their yard goes up to those pre-made precast parking bumpers. I took a picture and put that in my application. That neighbor is actually going to hire us, and we're going to redo the sidewalk along our frontage and the curb all the way along ours and the next neighbor up, which I think, again, is going to not only improve the entire streetscape at the private owner's expense, and again, it's just going to help this road start to look a little bit more presentable. It really needs to be paved, but I don't know if that has anything to do with this conversation. But we are going to redo the entire frontage of our property when it comes to the concrete curbing and sidewalk, which again is just going to, at the end of the day, going to be an overall improvement, even from the state of the previous yard. I think that's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Huber. I appreciate your testimony. I don't think I have any questions right now. I'm going to go ahead and give Mr. Rich an opportunity to provide anything if he would like. Mr. Rich, is there anything you'd like to tell me?
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple questions to confirm what you said, Andy. And first of all, Andy, I'd like to say it's been just a joy having you and your crew on the street compared to some of the other work that's being done there. This is the way the process is supposed to work, right? You have someone come in and you ask for permission to do this stuff beforehand, and you make sure you're compliant with the rules, and you're sensitive to the neighbors and trying to get cars off the street and parked legally. Thank you. This is such a refreshing change from the mismanagement and the sort of the fly-by-night operation that's being run down the street that, quite frankly, has evaded city's old review and penalty to date. So thank you, Andy. It's been great having you on the street. I'm not saying that I want you guys there forever, because I sort of do want the street back a little bit. David and Trey, I'd just like to give Andy some commendation where it's due here. He's done a nice job managing a very large and very complex project, and been very responsive to the neighbors' requests whenever they come up.
I appreciate hearing
so,
that.
Yeah, well, listen, it's been great. And then just to confirm, Andy, there's no change to the curb cuts. There's really what you're doing is just redoing the existing driveway. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, this points to the professional nature of Andy's operation. He probably didn't even have to come in here and ask for this because of the fact that it's a pre-existing driveway, but he wanted to do the right thing, and he did this, and he did it. And I think that's commendable, and the neighborhood thanks you, Andy, for that. So I have no questions. I have no concerns. I know this project's going to come out great. And I know it's not part of this docket, but I mean, compare this operation to the one going on closer to Edwards Road, and I think that you'll find a big difference in just overall project management.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Rich. Appreciate your testimony and your input on this matter and all matters up on Grandin. As professional and benevolent as Mr. Huber, it sounds like Mr. Huber is, he did in fact have to come for this curb cut. Trey, can you talk about that? Why we're here today in light of a pre-existing wraparound driveway here, and anything else you'd like to provide?
Sure. A couple of things. Andy and I have talked about this from the beginning of the project. They wanted to go ahead and get started on the foundations and other things for the house that they had planned prior to having a complete landscape plan, which would have dictated exactly how the driveway was going to be configured, other than the existing curb cuts. And so, in order to do the construction, essentially the old driveway, most of it was torn out.
But wasn't this automatically permitted if the driveway is already there?
Well, in part because they weren't prepared to go forward for they were not prepared to go forward for a hearing because there wasn't a design for it, and the original plans called for two separate driveways leading to two separate garages. That was the site plan I reviewed for the permit, and so I couldn't retroactively. In other words, that was what was proposed. That was what was proposed.
So was the double curb cut from the prior home grandfathered in?
That part is, but the original proposal for the dwelling called for two separate driveways leading to garages on wings on either side. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yes. Are you saying that the double curb cut was abandoned then when they submitted the other plans? No. Okay, Andrew, go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, my recollection was that despite there being a double curb cut and a wraparound driveway, Trey, I think it was probably April of 2020 or 21, our conversation went back to, yes, we see that was there, but you've demolished the home, and so it's not technically a grandfathered situation. I had my first site plan showed driveway going around as it does today, and you said that wasn't allowed because it was considered front yard parking. And you said you may wind up needing variances for multiple things on this property, and I would suggest you do one variance application. As it turns out, we don't need multiple variances. This is the only one, but right. I think it was good advice. And so I separated two driveways on my original application and submitted it that way because even though there were two curb cuts, it didn't technically constitute front yard parking. So now we got to the end, we've got a landscape plan developed. We don't need any variances. I needed to get this done to follow your original advice, and which is why it's happening now.
I hope that makes sense, David. This wasn't simply a repave, of a driveway. Also, the rear of the house goes into hillside, and for all I knew, they were going to put in a pool house or whatever without the landscape plan and the knowledge of all that. Andy and I talked about it, and this seemed like a simple solution for him to go ahead and proceed and do all the site work, basically demolish the existing residence, tear everything out, and get those foundations going, which was his chief concern.
To Trey's point, there was talk of a pool at one point, but that's gone away.
Okay. Trey, anything else?
Just thank you, both of you, both the Henders for noting that my staff report does provide an overall sort of a view of the street, the Cage's aerial view that shows that really this is almost the predominant, if not, at least half of the dwellings in this area have some form of either a circular drive or some sort of turnaround to them, because Grandin's a fairly busy road. I've driven down that so many times. My reception or my wedding was at the country club right down there. My mother-in-law belongs there. So this is a throughway. Normally estate-sized homes are on typically on a side street or more private thing. And Grandin's just been there for so long that these very large estate homes are there where people are coming through from other parts of Hyde Park, following Edwards and following Madison Road and so on, getting through there to get to a use such as a country club, which has, I don't know how many thousands of vehicle visits a year, but thousands. And there's no place to really park on the side of here or pull over for typically. I think Mr. Rich was kind of alluding to that, especially as you get toward that end of Grandin, there's really no place to, even for a FedEx driver or anybody, to pull over. A Lowe's trying to do a delivery or something, much less what Mr. Huber's trying to accomplish. So there really is very limited ability, especially at these large estate homes, for the landscape crews or anybody to come in and not become problems with trailers. And I'm just saying, imagine even somebody with a mowing service or something with their trailers and whatnot, without some kind of a way to turn around. You're basically backing a trailer out on the Grandin Road, sometimes blind. So I'm just super familiar with the street, and that's why I provided that detailed aerial image that Cages to show just the extent of how prevalent this is.
Okay, gotcha. Trey, did you say that this road is used as a cut through for vehicular traffic from one side?
It's not so much a cut through. It's just that it's for it being a road with estate-sized homes and expansive properties. It is a well-traveled road, is what I'm getting. If you come from Edwards, people say they're even going to one of these residences, but particularly to the country club there and to Summit Country Day. People come through Edwards Road and then up Grandin to reach both. I hope this is making sense. To reach both the country club, to reach Summit Country Day. People also come the other direction from Madison Road and cut through to get through to friends that grew up in Alpine Terrace, which is a lot more densely developed than this area. People use that as a cut through and go down Lower Grandin and up to Alpine, because they don't have to drive all the way through part of Hyde Park Square and Mount Lookout Square is the only other option. So they come through here, and I mean, half the high school students that live up in Alpine Terrace they're coming right through here to get back home. They're not driving all the way through two squares. So it's just an unusually busy street for and without parking on the side of the street for these estate-sized homes that will have a bunch of deliveries, maintenance, improvements, people maintaining them even. Just so I just note that it's not only these front yard parking situations prevalent or predominant in the area, but it makes practical sense, like common sense, like from a standpoint of not having traffic accidents and people being able to provide services for these larger homes.
Okay, thanks, Trey.
Yep.
Mr. Huber, anything else in closing or otherwise before we adjourn here today?
No, sir. Okay. No, I think it's all been said.
Okay, great. Let's leave it at that then. I have had a chance to review the application materials, excuse me, the staff report, and based on that, based on the testimony that I've heard here today, I'm going to approve the application and zoning request. I need to formalize that approval in a written decision. That typically takes about 2 weeks, but this is pretty straightforward. I'm going to try and get that out to you a little bit as quickly as I possibly can. I say 2 weeks as a back end in case I get really busy over here. So at most 2 weeks, but I'll try and get it out to you sooner. Once I finish that decision, I put it into a PDF. I'll email it to everybody who's in the hearing here today. You all have a copy of it really just moments after it's complete. As soon as you have that, Mr. Huber, you can work with Mr. Sheldon to get the permitting approved.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Sure.
you, Mr. Rich. Thank you. Appreciate your support again. And
Thank you, Andy.
Sheldon, likewise to you too.
All right.
Gentlemen,
Take care.
gentlemen, have a good day.